2 true scary stories. Make sure you do not watch this alone, because story 2 sent chills down my spine. Like and subscribe before we start. Starting off with Story 1. My friend Keith has an uncle with dementia. Long story short, his uncle usually lives with his grandma, but she was in Florida with some church group for the week. And Keith was going on a business trip, so while he was gone he hired me to house sit. This included watching after and taking care of his uncle. I'll call him Uncle Nick. Keith would only be gone for 2 days. On the first day of my house sitting, I mostly just hung out in the backyard reading and tanning, or in the living room watching TV. I cooked twice. Each time I made extra food for Uncle Nick, but I never saw him come out of his room upstairs. I went up to knock on his door lightly and tell him I made food. I heard a grunting noise on the other side of the door. I assumed that was his way of acknowledging me. I never actually met his uncle. Oddly enough, we weren't introduced when Keith hired me for this little job. Uncle Nick was fully aware of me being there. At least that's what Keith said. He never left his room to eat while I was in the living room. So I went up to Keith, the spare room for the night. I left the door cracked open so I could listen. I eventually heard a door down the hall opening and unsettlingly quick and heavy footsteps moving down the hall and down the stairs. Seconds later, I heard the same footsteps rush back up the stairs and back to the room, and the door slammed shut. It was honestly a little unnerving. Hard to explain. Just the intensity of his footsteps, like he was avoiding me or something. The next day was pretty similar to the first. I made 2 meals and left the food on the counter for Uncle Nick both times. When I was laying in the backyard again, I came back in to see the plate was empty, so I guess he was really avoiding me. So I went back out to tan some more. And when I thought about it, I looked up to the bedroom. Nick was staring at me. I think when he noticed me he ducked down. I felt so uncomfortable that I folded up the blanket and went back inside and up to the spare bedroom. It was okay. One more night of this and I'd be home. I made dinner that night and left him another plate. As I walked up to the spare bedroom, I noticed his bedroom door was open now. First time I'd seen that. Maybe he was becoming less shy. I went to brush my teeth and go to my room for the rest of the night, to give him his space. I was having a rough time sleeping though. I just wasn't tired at all. While laying there in the dark, I heard a short creaking sound coming from inside the room, even over the noise of the fan next to me. I sat up and looked around, still able to slightly see in the dark room. I didn't see anything. More specifically, I didn't see Uncle Nick. I was getting paranoid. Honestly, why was I becoming so creeped out by him? I lay back down on my side facing the wall next to the bed. I ignored the little sounds. I thought I was hearing it in my head for the most part. But when I heard a very faint groan, I sat up and turned off the fan to listen. I heard breathing. I turned to the far right side of the room by the desk. And there he was, sitting on the desk chair, turned to me. I screamed in fear and he came up to me going "Shish," and covered my mouth with his hand. In the moment I thought he was trying to suffocate me. So I pushed him off of me and ran to the nearest bathroom to lock the door. I listened as I heard his manic footsteps rushed back to his room and slammed the door. My heart was pounding inside my chest. I called Keith and told him about it. He sounded like he wasn't even that shocked. That's the scary thing. He told me it's best I sleep in the bathroom with the door locked. And when he said that, it said to me that his Uncle Nick is potentially dangerous, which scares me even more. I slept maybe 3 hours max that night on the bathroom floor. And in the morning I quickly packed my backpack and waited out in the backyard for Keith to return. He paid me extra for what I had to deal with. I suggest that he get his uncle some serious help, because I think he has more than dementia and I still don't know what his intentions were that night. Story 2. My dad once told us a true scary story of his from when he was in his 20s. When he was still living with my grandparents. He lived next door to this older couple in their 60s. One winter the wife Margie next door went missing. The husband knocked on their door and asked my grandparents if they'd seen her. But unfortunately they hadn't. No one had apparently. A few days later my dad was out at the park playing football with friends. That's when it started to snow. They played in the snow for a while until it got to be too much. Then they all went their separate ways back home. When my dad got home he realized his parents were gone. My dad started the fireplace and went to his room, which was adjacent to the living room, to throw his stuff on his bed. Then he went to take a warm shower. When he got out from the shower, he thought he heard humming coming from the living room outside the bathroom. He opened the door a bit in his towel. He said, "Mom." The humming stops, but a creaking sound continued. My dad threw on his clothes in the bathroom and walked out into the living room. There in my grandpa's old rocking sofa chair was Margie from next door. She looked straight at my dad and said, "It was so cold I needed to get warm." My dad ran next door to get the husband. But when the two of them returned to the living room, the sofa chair was empty. Margie was gone. The two of them searched the whole house together, calling her name. But she wasn't there. Now this much of the story was enough to creep me out already when my dad told it to me. But it didn't end there. And the really scary part didn't happen until the next day, when Margie's dead body was found in the man next door's crawlspace, where she apparently tripped and sliced her head open on a sharp objects. He only found her because the smell became so unbearable he smelled it from the garage. The thing is, the body was deemed to have been dead for at least 3 days. Yet my dad saw her in the living room just the day before. To this day, Dad believes he saw the ghost of Margie in my grandparents' living room that day. My dad's not one to make stuff like this up. When he first told us this story when I was 9, let's just say I didn't get much sleep that night. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe so you never miss when we next upload. Check out the videos on your screen on what to watch next. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.